Georgia is going to be missing a few players this spring, right? It's actually not as bad of a list of injuries as Georgia's dealt with in some previous springs. And this is something that I think ultimately, look, you don't want players dealing with injuries. You want them getting as many reps as possible. But there is a bright side to look at it, and I'll get to that here in just a minute. But I want to go through the injuries, talk about it, and just talk about what Georgia really needs this year. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about Georgia's injuries. I'm pulling up the injury report for you now. We know that there's a few guys that are really important to the team that are dealing with it. Monroe Freeling is one of those guys. I think he is going to be a starting player for Georgia. Gabe Harris, one of those guys. Dalen Everett, cornerback number 1 for Georgia this past season and this coming season. So, yeah, Georgia is dealing with some injuries to players that really matter. The Robinsons have been dealing with injuries. I'm going to go through the list right now. Monroe Freeling, labrum repair. Gabe Harris, labrum repair, right? Colton Heinrich, labrum repair. Christian Miller, labrum repair. Jalen Morgan, labrum repair. Ryan Montgomery, ACL repair. Branson Robinson, PCL repair. Roderick Robinson, ankle repair. Brett Thorson, ACL, MCL repair. And obviously, Dalen Everett, limited. Joseph Jonah Ajonye, dealing with a foot injury. Kirby said he's running. Kirby said he's working out, but he is not quite ready yet to be all the way back. They said he thinks he's going to progress as the spring goes on. So the list is, I don't know, I guess it sounds kind of long when I sit there and I list 9 or 10 guys, 11 guys actually, when you throw in Dalen Everett and Joseph Jonah Ajonye into that mix. Georgia's dealt with this before. Okay? So this is nothing new. I got to go to practice last week. Got to see a little bit of what Georgia's doing. They were showing us drills. I get to, make out a little bit of a depth chart with some of these players. It's difficult to do that sometimes when they're not showing you drills on the offensive line where there's 5 guys across and you can't see, oh, those guys are starters right now. But think about some of the spots where Georgia is going to be missing players from the previous years. All right? I think about Gabe Harris having the labrum repair and dealing with just not being around much this spring. He's supposed to be one of Georgia's top edge rushers. Why? Damon Wilson, he transferred out. Jalen Walker, NFL. Chaz Chambliss, NFL. Michael Williams, NFL. So Georgia lost a lot at the pass rusher position. And Gabe Harris dealing with the labrum this spring, right? It doesn't really help necessarily. What it will do for Georgia in the long run, and since Gabe is a guy that's been around the program for a couple of years, he doesn't really have to be worked up to speed. You just want your players to be playing. But what it will do for Georgia in the long run, I think that'll be beneficial, is the younger guys are going to get more reps. When I was at practice the other day, I took a couple minutes to look at the edge rushers, and it was the freshmen that are the ones that stood out, and it got me thinking, hey, these 5-star, supposed to be stars at this next level, like Isaiah Gibson, like Derek, I'm still trying to pronounce his name. I'm still working on that. But Darren, the other edge rusher, he's wearing number 11 for Georgia. Those guys are going to get very, very valuable reps this spring. And they're going to be fighting for playing time at a position where Georgia's simply just thin at it, right? At least they're thin at it in experience. They have the bodies. But no, they don't have players that have been around for a long time and been big contributors for a long time. That's something that Georgia is missing at that edge rusher position. Christian Miller, another guy dealing with an injury. I think it's going to pave way for some of those younger guys. All right, at the interior defensive line spot, Georgia's lost Nazir Stackhouse and they lost Warren Brinson, and those are 2 guys that have been a big part of Georgia's defensive line. They've taken a lot of snaps over the last few years, and they're gone. And look, quite frankly, Georgia needs better at a lot of these positions if they want to win a national championship. I think it's only going to get harder and harder to win a national championship. And to me, now Elijah Griffin's going to be getting more reps. Jordan Hall getting more reps. these younger players, Agbako, they're going to be getting extremely valuable reps. Now, you want Christian Miller out there, but he's kind of another example like I talked about with Gabe Harris where, well, he does have experience in the program. He's been around for a while, so it's not like you have to work him up to speed. It's just more about, hey, you want your guys out there and you want them healthy at all times. Well, I think it's going to pave way for some of the younger players to just get better and get acclimated, right? It's a big jump from high school football to college football. And even some of these 4 or 5-star guys take a long time to develop and turn into stars. Not everybody is Brock Bowers, who was really good at the jump. There's people like Stetson Bennett, who took a long time to get really good. Not a 4 or 5-star guy, but you get my point with that analogy. Sometimes players just need to get better over time, and that's going to give these people an opportunity. Now, some of these guys are not completely out. Like Ryan Montgomery, for example, coming off an ACL repair. Well, he was slinging it around at practice the other day. He was throwing to the Georgia wide receivers in a drill that was really it wasn't about Ryan Montgomery. It was about the receivers just getting their hands right. He's still getting reps in and working in the spring. So some of these guys are available. Now, I do think that I don't want to tab things a real issue, but depth at some positions for Georgia is an issue. And I think that at the running back position, it can be kind of glaring what they do this offseason in terms of just that room. What happened to that room? Trevor Etienne's gone, the guy that had the most experience and was Georgia's lead running back when he was available to Georgia last year. He left. What did Georgia bring in at running back? They brought in a freshman in Bo Walker, a 3-star guy who, until I see it and until I see something that tells me he's going to be getting in there and getting a lot of playing time, I'm not going to tab him as that guy. And they went out and they got Micah Bell, Dylan Bell's little brother, someone else that is an athlete. And when I was at practice the other day, I saw that I wasn't sure what position he was going to be, and it looked like he was taking reps with the running backs. He was in those drills. So they added guys that are not known commodities, right? And they lost a known commodity, and they've been dealing with these injuries. You got Nate Frazier, you got Cash Jones, you got Chauncey Bowens, and Dwight Phillips. There's a lot of inexperience in that room and not a lot of touches. At this point, Nate Frazier's the guy that has the most carries and has the most significant experience, even though Cash Jones has been around longer. He just hasn't gotten those touches as much. And let's face it, Cash Jones is not a guy that Georgia treats as an every down running back. So when I see Branson Robinson PCL repair, Roderick Robinson ankle repair, I look and I say, well, those are guys that are really supposed to contribute to this running back room, and they're not going to be around for the spring. They're not going to be getting in that work in the spring. And that's one of those where I look and I say, okay, well, that's really not the best thing for Georgia because they haven't been able to stay healthy, and they're just missing so many reps. Branson Robinson has missed a ton of potential reps due to the last 2 years of injury, and now Roderick Robinson is kind of putting himself in that category. I'm not saying he's putting himself in that category, but he's in that right now. So there are some of these injuries where you can look on the bright side of some things, and I think that, younger guys getting reps, Bowens and Phillips getting more reps, Bo Walker, Micah Bell, getting them developed, that's going to matter. But when it's a position like the running back room where what happens if Nate Frazier gets hurt or if something happens and he just can't play? You don't really know what else you got, right? I mean, you're banking on, is Bowens or Phillips Jr. or someone going to break out and be really good for you because the Robinsons haven't been healthy and they aren't going to have that momentum. We saw how affected Branson Robinson was by his previous injuries when he got into the games early on in the season. He just didn't look like the same guy, and that's not Branson Robinson's fault, but there's a mental aspect to injuries. I understand that better than a lot of people as I've dealt with injuries in sports growing up. There's a mental aspect to it and a physical aspect to it as well, where sometimes it just takes a long time to get back. So I think it hurts that Georgia's running back room, specifically the Robinsons, are still dealing with injuries. You want your guys to be out there, but I think overall for the most part, look, Georgia doesn't have a ton of injuries. This isn't like some of these other years where they have like 15 guys out. They've got about 10 out, and some of them are actually participating, like Dalen Everett was when I saw him in drills the other day. But Georgia's in a pretty solid place for injuries. I think in certain positions like the running back, it's not ideal, but on that defense, getting these young guys reps, I think it's going to matter in the long run. Thanks for watching.